Hello YouTube, welcome. This is Tuck Crossover and welcome to my first Bleach discussion video. Now, this discussion video is in response to, well, not just these two reviewers, but to a lot of reviewers. Namely, is about Yamamoto, Captain Commander Yamamoto, and is about the Royal Guard. I am going to be presenting this from the premise that I believe that the Royal Court Guard members, most of them, are most likely far more powerful than Yamamoto, and I think far more powerful than people realize. So, let's get into this. I'm going to be basing this on a few things. First, on age. Now, we know from the last arc, or the arcs before, the the arc where we had the pendulum swing, where we went back 100 years and Aizen was there as a lieutenant. During that arc, we found out that Yamamoto was we knew he was about 1,000 years old by then. Now, later on, we find out that he's approximately 2,000 in this Blood War arc. He's about 2,000 years old because we find out that he failed to kill Juhabak 2,000 years ago. So, he failed to kill Juhabak 2,000 years ago. And then on top of that, we also know that when he was talking to Aizen, he stated to Aizen, "No Shinigami born in the last 1,000 years has been stronger than me." That is significant. So, going back to the first level of analysis, we're looking at age. It's quite clear that the older you are, the more spiritual power they gain. So Yamamoto being the oldest, then you look at the other captains like Shunsui and Hikitake, also some of the older members. Then you look at Unohana Retsu, also the oldest, so pretty much the oldest captains, also the ones with, the most combined destructive power. Now Yamamoto, besides being old, it also comes down to size. When we look at the size of some of the captains, notice how they get bigger the older they get. Now, remember Aizen when he was a lieutenant? Check the size of he and Ichimaru Gin when they become captains. They're way bigger. When we look at Ichigo, when he went through Dangai training, he was way taller. When the Royal Park Guards members arrived after Yamamoto's defeat, they were way bigger. So I think that is definitely something to consider. But anyway, going back to the age factor, the reason why I bring up the age factor was when I was reading I think the second to last chapter about Ichibei, the monk, the Royal Guard who's given the title Monk of Perception. He gave all the names, according to him, he gave all the names and everything in Soul Society. The names of Bankai, Shikai, probably the names of all the institutions in Soul Society. He gave names to everything. He gave names to Zanpakuto, all that stuff. So if he gave names to all those things, that implies that he is, first of all, he's older than Yamamoto. Now, when it comes to Nimaya and Ichibei, both of these guys would have definitely been there because those two would have had an impact on Yamamoto's sword, on Yamamoto's Zanpakuto. Now, and this is where I want to make a review to Charles Enemy World and Shimigata X. When they were making the discussion, they said that Captain Yamamoto's Zanpakuto was the strongest fire type Zanpakuto. But I would refer them to that when Aizen and Yamamoto were fighting, Aizen stated, "Your Zanpakuto is the strongest Zanpakuto, and were I to go on you one-on-one, your greater strength would overwhelm me. That's why I chose not to." So Aizen there is saying it is the strongest Zanpakuto. So if Nimaya and Ichibei had a hand in that, with Uetsu making the Zanpakuto and giving him the Asauchi, which became his Zanpakuto, then you have Ichibei knowing the name of the Zanpakuto, or giving it the actual name, or knowing the name. This tells us that these two have these two are definitely very knowledgeable, but not just knowledgeable, it implies that they are about at least as old as Yamamoto. However, when it comes to Ichibei, I'm going to contest that Ichibei is actually older than Yamamoto, way, way, way older. Why? Because during the Full Bring arc, when Rukia and Ichigo were fighting, no, sorry, when Ichigo was fighting and was fighting Ginjo, and Rukia was standing with the other captains, who were the Byakuya and the other four captain level members who were there. They were talking to her about how they came to see what choice Ichigo was going to make after he learned the truth about the combat pass. Was he going to turn against them, or was he going to remain their friend, so to speak? What they said was that what they learned about Ichigo was that because of Ichigo, he had begun to influence Soul Society. He began to change how they fought and how they did things. They said that in the past, had this issue had come up, they would have just killed him and Ginjo. But instead, they came to watch and observe to see what choice he would make. And because he made the right choice, they left it alone. And then they said something that I thought was very significant. They said Ichigo affected 1 million years of Soul Society traditions. Okay, let's hold it right there. 1 million years of Soul Society traditions. Now, if Ichibei was the one that gave names to everything in Soul Society, and there have been 1 million years of Soul Society tradition, what does that tell us about his age? Now, I know that this is probably going to get a lot of people going bananas over. I get it. But what this implies, whether it's 1 million years or whatever, what it actually implies is that Ichibei has been there from the beginning, and therefore is much likely older than Yamamoto. And if he is, whatever the case, 1,200,000, 300,000, what this means is that this guy is at least 10 times older than Yamamoto. And if he is older, most likely more powerful. Why? Because in the Bleach universe, what we have seen is that the older people get, or the older they are, the more spiritual pressure they build over time. Now, we do have cases like Kutsugai who are prodigies, right? We do have cases where, like, Gin also was a genius, very young age. But you see, the thing is that it doesn't really matter. At some point in time, whatever talent or power they possess is just going to grow over time. It's just going to grow over time. The older they get, the more it's going to grow. So on that premises alone, I'm very confident that these members are way more powerful. Now, in terms of looking at the individual members, I think each of them, now that they're Royal Guard members, are probably more powerful than Yamamoto. Why is that? First off, these guys as Royal Guard members have access to a lot of hidden information Yamamoto wouldn't have had. They also have access to higher spiritual realities. So, first of all, they had to have been strong to get there, right? And I'm talking about the members that most likely, like Hikifune, who we know was promoted, how strong they were when they got there. So one, they would have had advancement in training, advancements in knowledge, advancement in spiritual power. So this is the major factor, I believe, which is why it is said that in combination, they are more powerful than the entire Growth 13 put together. The entire Growth 13. That includes the captains, the lieutenants, the seated officers, and also all the foot soldiers. And we know that in combination, we're talking about thousands and thousands of Shinigamis, because we know from the Quincy arc, they lost 1,000 in the first wave attack. Most likely these are foot soldiers. But keep in mind, all of these combined together, forming the Gote 13. And then you have these 5 royal members whose power is greater than all of them combined. Greater. Not equal to, but greater. Now, I know there's some of you out there who are saying that, well, that doesn't include Yamamoto. Well, I think it does. I think it does. He was part of the Gote 13. When Shunsui made this revelation, he didn't say, oh, now that Yamamoto's gone, their combined power is greater than the Gote 13 put together. No, he just said it is greater than them all put together. So we can't just assume that he did not mean excluding Yamamoto. Now, I know some people just don't want to believe that, because Yamamoto's Bankai was powerful, it was destructive, get all that, but in terms of spiritual power here, their combined power is greater than the Gote 13 put together, and that has to include Yamamoto. Now, like I said before, it's not just based upon physical strength or spiritual strength, it's a combination of all these things. The spiritual, the physical, and the tactics, you know. I think Aizen, had he made something a bit more useful to Soul Society, I'm sure even he probably would have been promoted to the Royal Guard. Most likely. But if you look at the other Royal Guard members, each of them contributed something far more significant. Now, the last thing I want to say, and this is going to be in reference to the Ichibei guy. Consider this. Now, Numaya makes all the Zanpakutos, right? He makes them all. Now, consider if Ichibei had, let's say these two guys had their own Zanpakutos roughly around the same time, say Yamamoto did. And they're up there in the Royal Palace. All the knowledge they have of their Zanpakutos. Consider the fact that they would have known the true names of their Zanpakuto. And as such, they would have mastered them more. They would have been honing their skills for a much longer period. We see that Yamamoto's Bankai was not necessarily as powerful as it was until the Blood War arc because of the length of time. Imagine the Royal Guard members with their own Zanpakutos being there for the same length of time. What you end up with is most likely a much more powerful version than the head captain commander. Now, that being said, I do not believe that the Royal Guard members are themselves necessarily more powerful than anybody else. I don't. There is actually one person who I think is far more powerful than both Yamamoto, the Royal Guard Squad, the Gote 13, and all of them, and that is Ichigo. And that I'm gonna have in another discussion video. I believe that Ichigo is potentially the strongest character in Bleach. More powerful than all the other people. But anyway, I'll get into that later. So, what does all these revelations I laid out tell us? Well, for one thing, it seems as though it leaves a lot of questions. If Ichibei was there at the beginning and Nehemiah too, does that mean the Royal Guard has been instituted way back further, when before we had the academy and the captain system, before we had before we had the captain's lieutenant system? What was there? Was Central 46 there? Did we have the four noble families running Soul Society? You know, how does this work? We know that Yamamoto started it, and I think even Aizen said, you know, the history of Soul Society is you. And I think what he means is that the system that is Soul Society as we know it, started with Yamamoto. But what does that mean? What happened before? And if Soul Society has had millions of years of tradition in how they operate, it implies that there has been an organizational structure in place for that length of time, as Rukia was saying. And if that is true, how long has the Royal Guard been there? Don't know, but we know that that the institution itself is older than Yamamoto, and that it is definitely full of members far more powerful. So I think when Shunri said more powerful than the Gote 13 combined, it includes Yamamoto. I think if it did not include Yamamoto, I think he would have said that. I think Kubo would have made that distinction, but he didn't. Anyway, but that is it. Give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts. What did you think of the discussion? What did you think of the information, the new information that I brought out? Let me know what you think. Rate, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you guys later. This is the crossover. Signing out. One last final thing. I can't believe I forgot to mention this. One key thing Yamamoto said to Aizen when he said to Aizen, "Why are you underestimating me?" When Aizen was about to kill him, he said, "You did not hear me. No Shinigami born in the last 1,000 years has been stronger than me." So what does that mean? Basically, he's saying that all the Shinigami born after him have not been stronger than he. Now, clearly the Royal Guard members, at least 2 of them, or 3, were not born in the last 1,000 years. So keep that also in mind. He said the last 1,000 years, no Shinigami born in that period has been stronger than me, but he's well over 2,000 years. Anyway, just a thought. And I thought, I don't know if I expressed that properly, but just to add that. Anyway, the crossover signing out.